Welcome to James Hates Everything and another Saturday night live stream for May 25th, 2024. With another pretty lackluster week in home arcade, we decided to bring you a guide on how to get the most out of your analog pocket so you can play those home arcade games the way they were meant to be played and the ones that all these home arcade companies are too busy to bring us to play. All that and more. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody. I hope you are having a great Memorial Day weekend here in the US. And I know most people are probably out and about. So if you're watching this on the replay, I really appreciate it. I want to give a correction to last week's because I had a giant brain fart when I was talking about all the different streams I was on. And I mentioned the joint stream we did with Cornercade where we simulcast the live reaction to New Wave Toys' big announcement. And I incorrectly stated the name of another guest and actually Gamer Fridge. And so, Gamer Fridge, I apologize. I just had a giant brain fart when I was trying to talk about that with all the other things I had going on. So, first off, just wanted to apologize to that. And again, thanks everybody for joining us. And thank you, Jason. I know you're moderating multiple channels simultaneously right now, so I appreciate that. And nice to see you, Kevin. And thanks for stopping by. And of course, as I mentioned, tonight we are going to talk about this fun little device. If you are lucky enough to have one, you know that this analog pocket, they come in and out of stock. It's been out for right about 2 years now, I think. They release it in analog releases this in a variety of colors and styles. So you can get it in clear, you can get it in different colors, you can get it in glow in the dark, but the staples are black and white and they come back into stock frequently. It's not a bad device at $200. This is an FPGA device, and by default, it plays Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advanced games natively. So you can play your cartridges on here. And as I stated, it's FPGA, which is not, it's a way of to just make it simple. FPGA is basically a special chip that allows you to emulate the hardware as opposed to emulating software, which makes gaming way more accurate. You play it like you're playing on the actual hardware. The games run with basically no lag, perfect sound, perfect graphics. These things are awesome. And of course, the Pocket also, you can pick up extra adapters. So not only can you play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, but you can also play Game Gear. You can play Neo Geo Pocket, Atari Lynx, and TurboGrafx 16 right on this thing. But what really makes it powerful beyond just the capabilities of playing those old mobile games, those retro mobile games, native carts on this system, is that it features, and tongue twister there, it features the OpenFPGA operating system. And what that allows to do is the community is able to go out and develop their own FPGA cores to load on this device, which opens it up to many, many systems beyond just the five I mentioned that were designed to run on this. So, real quickly, let's take a look at those cores that have been released, because I think you will find this very interesting as home arcade fans. And thanks for dropping by, Toxin and Mike Cockhertz. So first thing you'll notice on here is I'm just going to run through this list, and we're going to start off with a lot of arcade games. And so what these are, again, are FPGA cores that are emulating the exact hardware from these arcades. So you've got things like 1942, When you add this core into the Pocket, you get the real 1942 arcade game. You got 1943, Aliens. Well, just there's literally a ton of these, so we're just call out some of the big ones: Bubble Bobble, Commando, Contra, RoboCop. And here you get to really some of the more interesting things as we get into some of the multi-cade systems like the Capcom PS1, uh, the CPS 1.5, CPS 2. Great thing about those, right? They play a variety of games. So not just an arcade board designed for one game, you can now play a myriad of Street Fighters, Ghosts and Goblins, Ghouls and Ghosts. I think Street Fighter all the way up to Street Fighter Alpha 3, all supported on these. Of course, you got Double Dragon 2, X Axis, and there's a standalone Ghost and Goblins, Gunsmoke. Who doesn't love Karnov, Karate Champ? You get here, you got your Neketsu Kuni Kun. And of course, they have cores if you want to play other systems. So again, I mentioned that you can get the adapter to play your Neo Geo Pockets, but what if you want to play just ROMs and leave your collection on the shelf? Well, you can load up other cores like the Neo Geo Pocket. So you can either get the adapter or you can throw the core on there. Of course, back to arcades, we have Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja, Outrun, Roston. We get in here, you got the Sega System 16A and B. You got System 18. You've got Super Hang On, of course, the original Street Fighter, Simpsons, Splatterhouse, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Track and Field, Tiger Road, Vigilante, Ye Are Kung Fu, and of course, as we come down here, you got Commodore 64, IRIM, SNES, some big ones: PC Engine CD, PC Engine TurboGrafx 16 for those of us in the United States, more IRIM, and you can see in here In the Hunt, R-Type, Undercover Cop. You got Joust 2, you got a Vectrex core, so you can play those awesome Vectrex games. Athena from SNK, Asteroids Deluxe, Neo Geo, so you can actually play Neo Geo ROMs as if you're playing on real Neo Geo hardware. You've got Nintendo Versus System, you've got Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong 3, of course, Robotron, ASO Alpha Mission, Donkey Kong Jr., Tower of Druaga, again, the Amiga 500, Space Invaders. You can just see there are tons and tons of cores. Here's the Taito system with Elevator Action and Jungle Book and all those great games. Even Wonder Swan, Tiger handhelds, you name it. There are all kinds of cores that the community has put out there, and some of these are ported from Mister. If you guys know the Mister FPGA system, so there's some that were designed just for this, and then some that were ported over. And so I'll just scroll through here. Obviously, Qbert from the arcades. Asteroids, there's the original Donkey Kong, Puyon, Genesis, obviously, just a myriad. This goes on and on. Snow Bros 2, Lunar Lander, Breakout. So you can just see Galaga. Again, this all plays as though you're playing on the actual hardware, which is phenomenal. And we'll take you through this easy way to upgrade this. So if you guys actually get your hands on one of these, if you don't have one already, this process is super simple. So I put several links in the description. The first was to that core list, and new cores come out all the time and existing cores get updated. So just here in May, there were, I think, almost 10 cores either updated or released to support new games, things like that. And then there's the other link in here, and that is to, let me share that with you real quick. The pup date. So the P update is really the software you are going to want. So the way you mod or install things on the OpenFPGA operating system is you'll get a micro SD card and you'll just put that in your computer and format it like normal. Um, then you'll go out here to the link in the description and you are going to click on the easy mode link, which will take you to these pre-compiled source codes, and you can grab one for your operating system. So for our sake, we are going to use the update win.zip. So p update win.zip. And once that zip file is downloaded, let me get this up here. You're just going to unzip it and put the exe on your SD card. So that's the easiest way to do it. What I've done in this example is I've just created a folder on my computer that I use because that you can rerun this update and future versions of this update, and it won't have to re-download and install everything. So you'll see that as we get into this here in a bit. But so once it's on your SD card, you're just gonna double click it and run it. And just say run. You'll get a warning for Windows because this is just a um, you know, custom application. And of course, all you really have to do is say, uh, yes, we want to get going at this point. And that'll bring up the menu system. And your first time running it, you want to click update all. So one of the things this will do is not only install all of those cores, but it'll also grab the latest firmware from Analog. So you don't have to worry about, uh, you know, going out to Analog, downloading firmware, all that stuff. This application takes care of all of that. So it goes out, it gets the latest firmware, it gets all those cores that are available, and it updates every one if you already have done this before. Beyond that, on all those arcade games I've talked about, it includes the ROMs that are needed for those boards. So not when you get to say like the CPS 1 and CPS 1.2, all that stuff, you are going to get ROM packs with those to make them work. When you're talking all the other retro games, no ROMs are included on any of that stuff. So just to be clear, typical warnings, copyright, all that stuff. Um, you know, you're on your own from that standpoint. If you don't own these things, do that at your own risk, yada, yada, yada. Don't forget to reach out to Cool Toy for his ROM packs, all that fun stuff. So this process, if this is the first time you're running it, the process of running the P update will take anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes to fully build out the file structure and everything else you need. So I won't make you sit through that. So we will go ahead and pull that down. Once that's done, you're basically done at this point. It's all on there. And so the next step is, of course, eject your micro SD card, and you're just going to plug it into the side of your analog pocket and then fire the analog pocket up. If you need a firmware update, the analog pocket will detect the firmware update on the SD card and take you through the steps to do that. In my case, I've already done this before, so this was just an update for me, and it did not need to do that. So it takes you directly into the main menu. And so one of the things I want to just show you some quick examples of running an FPGA arcade game on the Analog Pocket here. And then we're going to talk for a second about how the Pocket, combined with some other products out there, can actually provide us some of the home arcade goodness that we've been missing in 2024. So first up, let's just jump into the OpenFPGA and take a look at what we got. And so what you're seeing on the screen is, of course, the Pocket, uh, uh, menu structure and user interface. It's very utilitarian because it's designed for that small screen on the Pocket. But I do have it plugged into a dock, which has HDMI out, and it's got USB inputs for controllers. And so here we're just going to run the actual Bad Dudes Arcade from Data East. This is 1998 or 1988 release. And it's as easy as just browsing to it and going in and clicking on, I'm just exploring here. But you just click run, click on the version you want to run. In this case, you'll notice this chipset supports both Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja and Heavy Barrel. Arcade. This is not just a ROM, it's the full FPGA, so no lag. And yeah, I suck at this game. In this case, I was playing with just a simple USB controller. I just plugged a Poly Mega controller, which is like a $10 PlayStation clone controller, that you can get off Alibaba. It's pretty much junk. But it works fine on this, and it just recognized it instantly. The controls are mapped already, so you don't have to do anything. The great thing about having the dock with your Analogue Pocket is you can plug in any USB arcade stick. So whether you have one of GRS's Glenn's Retro Show Thunderstick arcade decks, or you have some other Street Fighter deck, or from some other company, some other fight stick, it should be detected and work perfectly on this. And so with the HDMI out on the dock and with the USB imports, this makes this device something special when you combine it with something like the Unico Nova Blast. So you can run FPGA arcade games on the Unico Nova Blast with the 26-inch 4x3 screen, the two, 8-button joystick control ports, and it's like you have the actual arcade board in that machine. It has been fully tested with the Unico Nova Blast, so you can guarantee that these all work on that machine, which is great. And so for me, this is one of the projects I plan on working on, and then once the Nova Blast is fully released, I want to turn it into the world's most expensive Analogue Pocket dock. So that I can sit down and play these games that I know Arcade 1-Up or any of these other providers are never really going to bring us. And so just a second here, we will go to exit this game so you can see what they actually look at. Absolutely, Toxin. So another great thing you can do, right, if you have like you said, if you have an Arcade 1-Up project cab and you have something like the Buy Stuff Arcades 19-inch screen in there that with the HDMI board, you can plug that right in. Of course, add the USB controls over, and you're off and going, even in an Arcade 1-Up cabinet. Obviously, they're not 26 inches in size. They don't have as great of controls, but if you're swapping them out, you're probably putting good controls in there and a larger screen anyway. So you can certainly improve an Arcade 1-Up existing cabinet with a device like this. So I'm just going to, as we sit here and talk, I'm just going to show a few other examples, go into some of these multi-systems, right? Like the System 2 here. Just give you an example of all the games that kind of come with this. You can see Marvel versus Capcom, Mega Man 2, the Darkstalkers, like the Street Fighter Alpha 2, 3, Warriors, Street Fighter 0, 2 Alpha, Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Vampire Hunters, Darkstalkers 2 and 3. All that runs and is included in this application when you run it. And so we'll just jump into the Marvel versus Capcom so you can see that running. Yeah. Mike Cockert says, I actually prefer listening to the music in Bad Dudes more than I ever did playing Bad Dudes. It sounds great, indeed, and the game is, it's so-so. It's got its fans like any beat 'em up, right? It's one of the early ones, so it's not as good as some later things, of course. You can see it takes a little more and then it boots up just like any ROM board would.
Let's go crazy! Marvel versus Capcom!
And you can see you have to ring in both credits. It's operating just like you would expect it to.
Here, here.
I'm really not good at this, and it shows in this example. But I'll tell you, like, it is great because not only can you play these arcade games on the Pocket in the portable mode, so you can take these arcade games with you wherever you go, but with that dock, like I said, you can actually play with the great, full controllers and everything. So it is a very versatile system. You compare that to the Mister. The Mister is great, but it's not really something you're going to be able to take on the go. And while the Mister is more powerful, so you can run, when you're comparing the two, the Mister has more horsepower, so you can run even newer arcade FPGA cores on there, give you access to more games. But from an ease standpoint, the Analogue Pocket is about the easiest there is to set up. As you saw, one simple application, you run it, install, and you're ready to go. There's no configuration, no work, and again, the versatility of being able to go back and forth. Neo Geo and CPSU take about 20 seconds since they're bigger ROMs, to load, for sure. And, support on these cores varies, so some of the things like Neo Geo specifically, as they've been adding support for various games, not necessarily all games yet work on those FPGA cores. Specifically, I noticed messing with Baseball Stars Professional on Neo Geo, some of the graphic assets don't load correctly. So like I said, they're constantly being updated to fix any of these kinds of bugs or issues they're finding. And so that was MVC2. And so we'll just jump into TMNT here. You can see on TMNT, you also got Missing in Action and Punk Shot. One of the things I have not tried with the dock is if you could plug in a USB hub and actually play all 4 controls. But you can definitely play 2 straight out for sure. I just haven't tested 3 and 4, but there should be no reason that all 4 characters couldn't be played simultaneously if you have controls to support that. I think everybody's seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so I'll just jump forward here. All right, and lastly, I'm just going to show, speaking of Neo Geo, we're going to just drop in, and I want to show you, if you haven't seen it, again, these other retro consoles and them running on the same Pocket. Again, with Neo Geo, that's an arcade and home system, so you've got support for the AES and MVSX. And so here we're going to just throw on some, I don't have any Genesis ROMs loaded in there, of course. But just showing you all the different systems that are available. Yeah, I forgot. I could jump into Splatterhouse first. So this is actually Splatterhouse on the TurboGrafx 16, which is a great game. Just to show you TurboGrafx 16 running on here. And it does run natively. Hey Wade, I don't have any preference for the Intellivision, and I trust you're kind of referring to the news that Atari has purchased Intellivision this week, which is some of the bigger news in the gaming space. Atari picked up Intellivision, which included 200 trademarks and patents and intellectual property. So it would be interesting to see what Atari does with that rolling forward. Will they add some of those to the Atari VCS? Will they come out with more retro consoles like the Intellivision Plus, or will they revamp some of those old Intellivision games into modern recharge games? I guess we'll see. It certainly follows Atari's current practices. They, last year they bought stakes in both Polymega, which saved Polymega and a ton of customers like myself that pre-ordered Polymega and waited years to get it. It was Atari's investment in Polymega that really allowed them to fulfill those orders. Atari also invested in Antstream, and the purpose of both of those investments was to bring their libraries and their software to the Atari VCS. So those who own Polymega, once the Polymega software is out, you'll be able to take all the ROMs that you loaded from your physical games and actually be able to access them and play them on the Atari VCS. Likewise, Antstream runs on the Atari VCS now, and you can play all those great arcade games from Antstream directly on the VCS. Jason says, certainly better in Atari's hands than under any Phil and Tommy. 100%. Won't go into that Amico nonsense, but yeah, that was ridiculous, and at least they are not involved anymore. And of course, here's Bonk on Bonk's 3, I think, here on TurboGrafx 16. It says, I didn't know that. Curious that the old Battleship game and Utopia, which are not good for a standard controller. Yep. Yeah, they'll have to come out like, Atari has done on the 2600 Plus and release the original controllers, right? So you can actually use those with those retro consoles. Of course, the Amico's solution to that was to use cell phone type controllers to give you the access to the buttons and other things. But of course, that never came to fruition, and it was mostly vaporware. So, I never actually myself had an Intellivision. I had a Tandyvision, which was the same thing, but the Radio Shack version. But mainly played 2600. I actually didn't get the Tandyvision until way later in life, so basically never really played it. I was curious, Jason, did you check out any of the news with John D's Media One Up LLC? Thanks to Reddit, we now know what his company is at least called. We still don't know what, if anything, he's going to be doing in the 3/4 or full-scale home arcade space, but can't wait to find out. Now, maybe with his company name leaked, we'll hear soon. Mike Cockert says, I bailed on Polymega orders a few times over the year. Have you ever been able to use a send-in gun with the Saturn shooting games? I can never get a direct answer from them. So I don't believe their send-in gun. I think they did a special one that worked with their system. And of course, lots of people pre-ordered that. I don't think that has yet to ship. And in fact, I noticed Polymega, there's issues with the ladder units. They have some sort of heat issue or something is causing them to lock up occasionally. And Polymega claimed they had a fix that was probably 6 months ago and that they were going to release the firmware, and they've gone quiet again, which is what Polymega always does. They talk, they do a bunch of stuff, and then they disappear. So right now I know you can definitely jump in and you can order Polymegas and get them. But where our firmware is, where their software that was supposed to allow you to play your games on your computer as opposed to the actual Polymega hardware. Those have yet to materialize. As part of Atari's investment in Polymega, they're supposed to come out with a 2600 module. So I imagine there's development of that going on, but it has not been released yet. Polymega's newest one was the N64, and it works pretty well. It's not the best in the world, but it's okay. Um, I'm not a big fan of the N64 anyway, so I'm not missing anything. And there was Flappy Bird. So it operates terribly. I'll just say that. Does not work well. Um, and here I'm just kind of going through showing what different games are available. So if you see through there's Contra. So we'll just jump into that real quick. And Kevin says, James, the sad thing about John D's post is he said there were no other arcade companies at the license event. That is true. I honestly don't know how to take that. I don't know how to really take that. Is that something we should be concerned with? Because, on one hand, we're told Arcade 1-Up basically owns the licensings for everything already. They certainly would have the contacts already. Do they need to go to a licensing event? I mean, maybe if they're trying to pick up licensing for a new company, one they don't already have licensing with, so maybe more modern games. I don't know that I truly care all that much about it, but it is interesting that maybe New Wave Toys isn't there if they're trying to get licenses from other bigger companies. But again, they've been doing this for a while. They probably already have a lot of solid contacts in the kinds of games that they want to release. Which leaves At Games, right? And again, At Games has all kinds of different games from different companies on their platform already. So do they really need to go out and meet somebody and try to find those? So I don't know what to make of that, right? I would say it's the same argument with CES. Why does Arcade 1-Up need to go to CES? So, a lot of people defended that choice of them not going. I think it was a huge miss because it's a big, huge marketing push. And, we do know that Arcade 1-Up sent their CEO to a retailer convention in Vegas earlier this year. So I don't know, obviously John D pointed that out, that they're not there. It's probably important that they do go to something like that just to meet their licensors. So there's something to be said about the networking aspect of it and just getting the vendor management, I should say, that's more along the lines of vendor management. They're your partners already. It's good to go meet with them, talk about the kinds of things you're doing, what they've got going on, just so you're continuing to build those relationships. So from that aspect, I think it's probably a concern that they're not there. But I don't think they need to go there to get the licenses. I think it's more along the lines of this is another sign that they're financially can't afford to go to some of these things, which I don't think is the case, especially given they're going to things like Coachella and some of these races and doing events. I think it's more along the lines of their priorities are out of alignment with what the home arcade community wants, right? They're more concerned with, trying to sell their products to Gen Zers, it seems. They don't seem to be truly all that focused on their core customer base. So, casuals, Gen Z, that seems to be their target. I mean, certainly, TikTok and Instagram, I don't think is going to land on your people that are, middle-aged people. Certainly possible, but highly unlikely. So when they're doing that kind of advertising, it really seems like they're targeting Gen Z, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know. I mean, it just continued. Arcade 1-Up continues to make questionable decisions. You can see here, this is the actual Contra arcade ROM. It's in that, vertical aspect mode. And you can distinctly tell the difference between that and the Nintendo version. I mean, they don't even look the same. Let's see here. John D, please save us. Agreed. We at least know he understands what the core customers want. And Jason says, to be clear, there's really only so many A1 up and licensed Pac-Man. Yep. Yeah, that Pac-Man birthday ad, that's interesting because I noticed many companies pushed almost the same artwork out. So that seems to be Bandai Namco asking their licensors to go out there and suddenly celebrate Pac-Man's birthday, which I found interesting. Uh, if they have them all, then no need. Yeah. I'm sure at this point they have direct communication. Yeah, I mean, they've supposedly built these relationships, right? So again, going to these conventions is more at this stage for somebody like Arcade One Up, who's clearly the leader in the space by far, having all the retail partners and all that other stuff, would really just be about vendor management and continuing that build those relationships and make sure they stay tight so that when these licenses come up for renewal, they can actually you know, renew them and not lose them. At the same time, we know that most of this company is run by millennials who have really become professional, moved from education into the professional world during COVID, and may entirely think they can manage these relationships via Zoom or teleconference, which only gets you so far. Let's see. Maybe they ought to go. I think Sega and Konami stopped picking up the phone. Excellent. Arcade One Up doesn't talk with companies anymore. Now they just partner with grocery products, NGOs instead of CES. Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting strategy. So that's really all I wanted to show. I thought about doing a video on um, the analog pocket stuff versus like doing some live thing and just talking through it. But I figured, hey, with what's going on, I don't, all the other news things have been covered by this time in the week. You know, um, obviously we talked a little bit about the Atari news. There's about 10 million videos if you want to watch that. Um, I think the John D stuff is interesting, and Bill's retro gaming show has a really good video on the Reddit thread that uncovered John D's company. It's funny because I was actually going to go do that myself. When I saw it was LLC, I was just like, oh man, all you have to do is look up his name at like the California Secretary of State's office on business registrations and to see if it comes back as if there's a company that he registered. And turns out there was, right? Reddit beat me to it because I was being too busy doing other things. So awesome job by them. Um, he is listed as the president. It's a video game and consulting company, it, so it'll be interesting to see if they actually produce any products or if they take the position of like think up and just work with other companies. Either way, I think it'll be interesting because especially if there's say another company like somebody I don't know, like maybe Buy Stuff Arcades, which is about to announce something new. Maybe they've partnered with a licensing guru, and instead of quote unquote hope we don't get sued, they actually maybe have secured some licensing with the help of somebody. Who knows? That'll be interesting. Uh, Speaking of Buy Stuff Arcades, I have to give them a shout out. I don't know if you guys can see behind me, but that is a custom 19-inch vertical screen for the Street Fighter 2 HS5 cab so that I can it's for Akari Warriors, right? So it's skin for Akari Warriors ready to go. I'm installing that this weekend. Um, the marquee came a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately, the plexiglass that I got for the marquee so I can make the marquee swappable came too big, so I had to get that redone. That won't show up uh, yet, so I won't be able to fully get the whole thing done, but at least I can get the screen in, start testing everything. Definitely excited to do that. And I just can't give a big enough shout out to Buy Stuff Arcades for working with me to develop this, to get it out there. I'll do a review not just on that, but I have their new HDMI converter board on this screen, so it's brand new. Supposed to be much higher quality. Although I'm not going to use the HDMI converter board specifically for this Akari Warriors project because that will use the native Arcade One Up PCB that I soft modded for Akari Warriors and other vertical controls. I will put it through its paces before I convert that all over and test some other games from a PC onto it to see how well it works. Might plug in some other devices like the Analog Pocket, things like that, to see how good they look and operate on there. Um, and so I'm really interested checking that out. And of course, you can go on their website and purchase those screens if you're looking to upgrade yours to a 19-inch. Kevin says Arcade One Up is just like having an exclusive license with the NFL. Madden has been awful for decades. Yep, and it'll be interesting to see, on the Madden front with the new college football 2025 coming out here this summer, if it's any good. Um, they haven't produced a new college one since 2014, so we'll see if they screw that one up and just basically have slapped college teams into the same old Madden they've been rolling out all buggy for a long time, or if they actually did a really good job and are actually going to send a polished new football game out. I can see people that just want to play football, if it's good, overtaking Madden because Madden has been so bad for so long, so buggy. Mike Cockert says, so true. Kevin Clausen is so in addition to a new home arcade company, we also need 2K Sports to get their new NFL game to market. Yeah, I mean, we need anybody to make a good NFL game. Honestly, I'd love to go back. One of my favorite NFL games of all time was the Dreamcast 2Ks, right? There was also ESPN did a really great football game back in the day where of course it had its all sports center part of it, but you could actually play from inside the helmet. So you could go first person view as well to the traditional third party. And as somebody who played football, there was no game that replicated that experience as closely as what that ESPN game from when you played inside the helmet. It was very, very akin to what it really felt like, which was really kinda cool. Like, I would love, for a modern game that actually looked really good to do that. I don't think they will, but maybe some of these VR games eventually will get good enough to make that experience really well. That would be fun, especially if they add haptics and you can get CTE and all that fun stuff. So that's really all I have. See, so there's a new game that just launched on mobile called NFL 2K Playmakers, but it's not a sim. Yeah, I think I've seen some of those. There, the not the specifically the 2K, but like obviously, I think there's like a version of Madden in VR, but it's really just kind of throwing the football. And it's just not the experience I would want from that aspect. But I'm hoping we get something someday that is good. A1 Up presents Joe Montana Sports Talk Football. Absolutely. Or better yet, I'm a huge Broncos fan, and quite possibly the worst football game of all time is John Elway's football on the NES. Maybe Arcade One Up will do that. Um, I mean, 10-yard fight might be a better football game than the John Elway football. Are we gonna talk game 3 now? Celtics up 3-0. Wow. Uh, Up 3-0 is in, like, 3 points, or they're up in the series 3-0? Makes me wanna play NBA Jam or that the new one. Hey, thanks for dropping by, Shane the 14. Hope I did that right. Are you in Denver? No, I'm actually in Kansas City, but I've been a lifelong Broncos fan, which is really irritating living in Kansas City with the Chiefs, believe me. Says my nephew actually loves to play me in the first Montana using the Intech Genesis deck. Excellent. John Elway, the person is a legend. Love how he went out on. Oh yeah, yeah. And I don't know that I've actually shared this on stream, but I actually was at Super Bowl 33, so the final game of his career. I was fortunate enough to go and attend. Um, we my ex-wife won tickets off the radio, so the entire trip was free. It was like kismet. I didn't believe it the entire time it was happening. And then, of course, we got to go, and I got to see him in his final game win back-to-back Super Bowl championships. We really kicked the crap out of Atlanta, so it was a great game that didn't have to go out to a Super Bowl and see them lose. It was just a crazy, awesome experience. That whole week was amazing. It was in South Beach. They put us up in South Beach, right on A1A Boulevard. So all that crap. Um, was so fun. It was a great experience. Something I tell people all the time because it's one of the major events in my life. It was so weird. Like it was just like meant to be. Um, Kevin says I heard Elway owns a ton of car dealerships. So he actually did. In fact, one of the more interesting things and things I wish like more more quarterbacks, more team leaders would do. Of course, Denver ultimately got in trouble for this because while it wasn't a violation at the time, they wanted to punish Denver for it. But Elway made way more money from his car dealerships than he did playing football. And so what he did is defer his salary for the latter several years of his career so that Denver could spend the money to get uh, and secure players like Terrell Davis, Rod Smith, Ed McCaffrey, Steve Atwater, all those greats, Shannon Sharp, obviously, all that stuff. He deferred his salary to do all that, which he put himself second and said, "Just get the team. I want to win a Super Bowl," and then they won back to back. They very likely could have won 3 straight if he had stayed. Um, Terrell Davis was a beast, and really, one of the tough things about his final season, he was injured a lot, but Gus Frerotte was at least manageable. But when they got Brian Greasy and put him in there, and he basically ruined Terrell Davis with an interception. It was just mind crushing, soul crushing. But I will say, Terrell Davis on the side of the Arcade One Up NFL Blitz is the primary reason I bought that cap. I love the game NFL Blitz, but having Terrell Davis up there on the side of that thing, I was like, oh yeah, I have to have that. That has to be in my collection because I needed it. Did you see the year before and see the helicopter dive? Oh, of course. Now I didn't go in person, but we had a big Super Bowl party at a family member's house, and obviously I was decked out all crazy in Denver stuff, and that game was so nerve wracking, and of course the drive there at the end with just to win that game, and of course all the excuses that said, oh, Holmgren let you score, all this that, let the Broncos score that they could go down and have a chance to come back. Baloney. Just suck it up. You guys got beat. But I know there's a lot of Packers fans. But I remember because that's around the time that DVDs were really new and coming out. And there was an RCA DVD player that if you bought it, it came with a DVD called The Best One Ever Super Bowl 32, which was basically a documentary of Super Bowl 32, and it had most of the game. but you could watch it. You could, of course, it was all meant to show off the power of DVDs. So you could switch sideline cams and you could watch things from either sideline. You could watch, most of the key plays as they were broadcast, all that other stuff. But it also had the play by play by both teams' radios. So you could again switch off to alternate audio and hear the play by play of Denver's announcers, hear the play by play of Green Bay's announcer. Really cool DVD. And, I also have the Super Bowl 32 Monopoly, which is a silly thing, but I do have that. Like I said, I've like loved the Broncos forever and watched them go to many a Super Bowl and get destroyed. So when they actually got two together, I was super happy. And Papa Brad is in the house. Says he will watch on replay. Hit that thumbs up. Yep. I appreciate the shout out, guys. If you are joining us, would appreciate the thumbs up. Getting really close. I think we're about 75 away from hitting that magic 500 number. So if you're not subscribed, and I know 2/3 of you aren't, I would appreciate a sub. And of course, if you want any notifications, ring that bell. Um, Like Hocker says, I got Montana 1 and 2 on the same Christmas and always very fond of both of them. Excellent. Yeah, it was fun. Like, quite honestly, speaking of Montana, right here in Kansas City, when Montana came here, it was obviously a big deal. It's at the end of his career, but he still got them to an AFC championship game. But I always tell people, like, I've watched every Denver game, since I was probably in fourth grade. So many, many years. I've watched every single one. I've never miss it. The and it was interesting because even back then I can remember using antennas to try to get watching it grainy through the thing so I could pick up stations in western Kansas that were carrying the game. And I'd watch it through all the fuzz and just try to catch a glimpse of what was happening. But the best game I've most fun I've ever most fun game I ever watched with the Broncos was, of course, Broncos versus Chiefs when it was Elway versus Montana, and that was the greatest game I think that as a fan I've ever experienced, and Denver lost that game, but man, if you're a fan of football, that game was so fun. 2 legends battling it out, it was going back and forth. You had Marcus Allen, Montana, Elway. It was just such a great game. If you've never seen it, if you get a chance to see it on one of the, on the NFL Network or something like that, I definitely recommend it. It was a true knockdown, drag out fight. So that 4th quarter is one of the most amazing 4th quarters. It was so fun. As a kid, I wasn't too heavily into most sports games. I enjoyed action arcade and RPG. Yeah, good deal. Oh, I live in Denver. Well, awesome. My sister-in-law lives in Denver, and I love Denver. So, great place. Elway used to have Elway branded auto dealerships here in Denver. Yeah, yeah. I think he's gotten rid of most of them. I think, if not all of them, at this point. And of course, I think he still has the steakhouse, right? Elway's Steakhouse is still there. Uh, Not all are now named something else. Not sure what else, what he still owns. One of the interesting things is, I've been reading a lot about Bo Nix, right? I'm tired of the Broncos of late, post Peyton Manning, have been so frustratingly disappointing. But I've loved reading the articles about Bo Nix, right? So one of the great things you get when you're a Denver quarterback is you get to talk to two huge Hall of Fame quarterbacks, right? You get Elway and you get Peyton Manning. And Bo Nix obviously has spent time with both of those, but then he also got to spend time with Tom Brady now. So, you know, I don't know much what more you can do as an impending rookie than meet with three of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Obviously, current Patrick Mahomes is a stud, but he's still playing, right? You're not going to meet with him, but um, I guess if he can figure out how to link up with Montana and Marino, maybe he can pick up more pointers. But It's very cool to get such a close um, to be able to be mentored by such talent. It's just insane. I can't. So hopefully he's not another dud in a long line of duds, and he plays decent. But we will see. Papa Brad says, James, can I ask your opinion on what is the best Zen table on the 4KP? I like your gameplay streams. I appreciate that. I like watching yours as well. You really do cover uh, the at games really well. Um, my favorite to play is still Attack from Mars. Before I jumped on this live stream, I've been playing Twilight Zone for the last hour, hour and a half. I enjoy that one probably second best. I think that one to me is playing the best. Other than the plunger is absolutely frustrating. So much of that table is the skill shot. There's so many points that you can rack up. It's also one of the easiest ways to um, get that ball rocketed off into the camera slot. And it is so frustrating that not where you pull it, it's just completely random. It is either going to just like, barely move the ball, or it's going to just rocket it all the way up. And it's just frustrating. So I'm getting, lucky, I guess, where I can hit the yellow maybe 10% of the time. But it's so frustrating how that plunger is just kind of broken. So I hope they fix that. But like I said, I think the rest of the table plays the best. The physics seem to work right on it. I don't see any of the weird skidding balls like I have on some of the other tables where it rolls into weird directions. The other ones, you can see that. It's almost like some of those balls have backspin on them and they just take weird turns, or they become, what I said when the Peanuts table first came out, it was like the ball was either like glued to the table and was like 5,000 pounds, or it was so lightweight that it would just rocket around so fast you couldn't see it. Like the physics were all over the place. That was better with that firmware update that was released like 2 or 3 weeks later, improved that quite a bit. But you still see weird stuff going all over. Um, Obviously, I think the Star Trek Next Generation table plays well. Obviously, there are issues with the graphics, but I don't think they're so bad that I'm worked up over it. I think it still looks good. But yeah, it's not true. The background, the texture of the background is probably not truly all the way remastered into 4K, but I think it still looks good. It plays really well. Unfortunately, I'm god awful at that one. It's so frustrating to play that table. Um, but I do enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to the Godzilla versus Kong tables coming out. The the thing with these, and I'll probably do a live stream, of course, too, just the same way I've been doing that night when they first come out. Just to, I'm going to play them anyway for a while to learn them. So I just, do a quick thing. Plus, it's an excuse to stream, do a live short stream, which I've been wanting to do for a while. And so I've been able to do these. So honestly, I hope the 14 new games coming from at games, they continue to do this week release, because I find it really fun to get a chance to play these other tables. But the Zen native tables aren't that exciting to me. Um, I really like the recreations of real tables that Zen does. That's my favorite thing to play. That's what I like. That's what I want to see. I'll still play the other ones. Like I think Peanuts is fun. It's just really hard. Um, I think obviously Godzilla and King Kong are fun properties, and I'm sure those tables will be fun, bearing in mind that I don't really play Zen on my PC. I bought a bunch of tables a year ago when they were all on sale, but I still don't play them. I like playing them on the ad games. I like playing the tables on the real field table. It's just more fun to me than just playing it on a computer. But it's not to say it's not good to play it on the computer or anything. I just like playing it the other way. But yeah, so I'm excited. I like what At Games is doing for sure, and I hope with this update I believe the update's scheduled for next week, right? Right after, is it right after the Godzilla or right before? I think it might be right after. I'm hopefully that improves things quite a bit. We'll see. Um, yeah, I think it's great. I'm really, even though I just said that about the Zen native tables, I'm really looking forward to the Universal TV Classics because I really, really, really want the Knight Rider. I'm a big Knight Rider fan. I'm working on that Knight Rider D'Agostini model, so I'm excited to play that one. Um, of course, some of the other ones on there seem really interesting. Um, I will really like the Chucky and the Thing. I want to play those. Obviously, those are big horror properties that I enjoy. Again, native tables, so I don't know how much I'll actually like the game itself. I know I could go get Pinball M and play those right now, or even the Zen versions. But, um, the properties of the Thing and, I've huge fan of the Thing, always have been. It's one of the to me, it was like that scene where they're testing the blood is seared into my brain as a kid. And even the movies like The Faculty, which were remakes of The Thing, just in a different genre. I've always been a fan of that. So that's a property I love. Can't wait to play that table. But big horror fan, so all that horror stuff I will enjoy, even if it isn't some real table. Kevin says, "I'm so happy the channel is now a sports show." Well, definitely not going to do too much of that, but I'll talk about the Broncos, but up until the season starts, and then they show how dog shit they are again, and then I won't want to talk about football at all. Because it's so frustrating, especially living in Kansas City when the Chiefs are actually good. I'm spent most of my life being able to say how much better the Broncos were, and now Mahomes is something special. Bear down, indeed. Uh, yep, love the Williams Tabor, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Monster Bash. Oh, there's so many good old tables. I would love to see. I mean, I know Zen's not going to do some of these other ones, but I would love to see them come up and do a lot more from the '90s, like they've done. Even new ones that they haven't released yet would be so much fun. Playing on a cabinet is way better than playing on a console. Yep. Yeah, I agree. Um, totally with that. It's just so I'm never gonna buy a $7,000 pinball game. My my brain won't let me do that. I'll waste money on tons of other things, but I just look at that and I'd be like, well, if I want to play that table, I can pay $1 a play at some bar. Um, and interestingly, one of my favorite Philly cheesesteak places of all times just decided to add pinball. And so they have over 10 tables and they have Jaws and a bunch of others. So I was thinking about doing a video there either this weekend or next weekend. One to show what is probably the best cheesesteak place, certainly in Kansas City, but it's the best one I've ever been to anywhere. Um, and so I've always been big fans of that place. And then now that they have the pinball there, I think it's a nice little video I can throw together. Um, but yeah, I mean, again, real pinball, even if you get one of the cheapy ones that's 7 grand, right? You have to play that thing 7,000 times to get your money out of it. I don't play anything 7,000 times. uh, Calvin Wong, thanks for dropping by. 10 machines, tables are for virtual pinball. Yep. Yeah, I mean, virtual pin is good enough for me. I mean, that Y you know, if you can play all the virtual pin, and then when you're at a place like Pinball Expo or at one of these pinball places, you at least know how the table works, you'll at least play that more adequately than just going up to it, and so get a little more value out of that dollar or $2 you're playing on that table. It is, Chartreuse Caboose on Metcalf, Thor, KC. So Chartreuse Caboose, uh, has been around forever. And there was a period there about 15 years ago where they tried to expand to a bunch of different locations, and it just I think one's still going, but all the rest ended up shutting down. But the original on Metcalf is awesome, and they've just added all these pinball tables, and they have pinball from different generations, so all the way up to Jaws, but they have older ones, they have some 90s ones. I think um they have uh Star Wars Episode 1 one, the one that has the TV screen on it. They have trying to think of some of the other ones that jumped out at me when I was um looking at those. So a coworker went there and actually sent me pictures. I was like, "What? They added all that stuff?" So definitely, it's on my list to go up there and shoot some stuff, and because it's a great place and their cheesesteaks are awesome. So with that, we've been on for an hour. I promised I wouldn't go over an hour, especially after last week's 2.5 hours. So I do want to thank everybody for joining us. Hopefully, we get some big news this week. Yeah, or the one on 87th and Lenexa is still there. Um, but I think the Metcalf one is the only one that has all the pins, but having said that, I didn't actually go check the other one to see if they added them. The other one isn't, the one on Metcalf is that whole, I mean, they've been there forever, right? And so it's that whole older vibe anyway, and the way it's all set up and laid out. Whereas the one on 87th is very much more of a modern restaurant, and so it's not quite the same feel. They may have a few tables in there, but the way they have them set up in the original place is great, because they took the whole wall along the far side, and it's just all pins. It's really cool. Um, Gottlieb has a ton more. Oh, Nightmare on Elm Street. That is, so if there were a table I would buy, it would be Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's not because I think that table's great. It's because uh, the other the other thing I'm, like, obsessed with as a kid besides the Broncos was Freddy Krueger. So I have all kinds of Freddy stuff, memorabilia, and that table I've always wanted. I know you can get a virtual pinball of Nightmare on Elm Street on, um it's not a licensed one, it's one fans have recreated on, I can't think of the software. I do have that, but I have never set it up to actually run it. Yeah, I mean, you've got some great ones there, and of course, Lord of the Rings would be cool. That Stargate table is beautiful. I love the effect on the gate on the back glass. Um, uh, yep, 100%. You can drop that analog pocket right into the ALU HD. I mean, that's what's so versatile about the pocket with the dock having the HD and the USB. You can connect up so many devices. I'm just really excited. I was looking, quite frankly, looking for excuse to buy the Unico. Um, Plugging a PlayStation to it doesn't do it for me. But the Pocket and the Mr. K do. Also, I'm probably gonna just pick up MVSX off of like Alibaba or something because you can get lots of MVSX boards off there. I may get one of those for the Nova Blast as well because it's got a JAMA connection, and of course, then you can just throw in one of those 160 and one carts or something and play all those Neo MVSX Neo Geo games on there. But I can also do that with the Pocket, so I may or may not still do that. But uh, thanks for the kind words. I'm really interested in the Evercade Alpha, and I wonder how the two A's are angled, right? Like, where's the camera? Like angled like this. If that's a hint, right? They're forming like a tent, you know. Um, that if that's a hint at to what it may be, who knows? The only real hint we have is that the controller for the VSR works on it. So it has a controller port. We know that. So that seems to seems to indicate it's not a handheld, right? Because while you could put a controller port on a handheld, it's probably not a great experience. Um, so it's something that can use controllers. And so I know Jason, I think, said yesterday he's really leaning towards some sort of arcade. I've seen like small arcade, not necessarily big. I've seen some people speculate that it might be like that little Taito one with the rotating screen, because of course the Evercade handheld, um, I forget what the name of it is, can be played in Tate mode or the other mode, possibly. Um, you know, uh, I'm hoping, I'm hoping it's just a more powerful console with like maybe 4K and can take advantage of their new the 1 gig carts, so that they can move up a generation in emulation. So you still have the VSR as the traditional one where you can play all those plus some of the larger games from that era, but maybe we get some new hardware that plays even further up uh, in capabilities, and I think that would differentiate the two enough. But it it's probably likely what Jason thinks. Uh, that seems to be one of the missing gaps. I think it would be cool as hell if it was suddenly they decided to compete in the the 3-quarter arcade space, but I don't think they will. I mean, they make inexpensive game systems with, those physical retro cart style carts and um so I think whatever it is along those lines. If you think more along the lines of what did we like as retro players and what's missing, um, that may answer that question. Doubt Farsight would do them. Nightmare on Elm Street would be great to add to Pinball M. Did you dress as Freddy on Halloween? I actually have dressed as Freddy as Halloween many times. I have a Freddy Krueger prop as well, like the actual glove with metal knives and everything, so you could actually really hurt somebody with that if you wanted to. Um, I have all kinds of crazy Freddy stuff. A lot of it packed away, but a lot of it on display too. I always loved it. Me and some friends shot a Nightmare on Elm Street movie as kids. I had a video camera, and one of the things we did special effects and all kinds of stuff in our backyard, doing all kinds of that stuff. I obsessed with Freddy Krueger. Real pen or something new. Way back arcades, a ton of Gottlieb tables. More likely a custom table for Freddy that would rock and could be the real voice. Oh yeah, they could easily get Robert Englund to do the real voice. Um, I've heard that with with the Friday the 13th announcement that they're kind of relaunching that with the original creators with this whole, you know, Friday the 13th cinematic universe thing. I've heard there's talk of actually getting Nightmare on Elm Street going again. Um, obviously the last reboot was totally like garbage. They went way too far on like the backstory of Freddy and made it super creepy. And so, Freddy's always been one of those horror monsters that you love because he's hilarious, and it's hard to be hilarious when they make him like some kind of extreme pedo. So I hated that remake, and you know, I don't know what they were thinking. It's not enough just to be a child killer; they had to make him a complete weirdo. Um, Shooting the ball into Freddy's mouth was a cool gimmick. Gottlieb did. Since Godzilla vs Kong is Warner Brothers, so is New Line Freddy, so that's possible. I certainly with Pinball M, I you can't imagine them not trying to get Friday the 13th and um, Nightmare on Elm Street. They've done Leatherface already, right? Why wouldn't they do those two? Um, you got to throw Pinhead in there. You got to get all those classic 80s slashers. Zen did an outstanding Chucky table. Yep, of course they have Chucky too. I've never been a big fan of Chucky, but my oldest daughter is obsessed with Chucky. Uh, Show us the glove. It's I will. I've shown it in my arcade tour video at the end of last year. I will definitely show it in the future and maybe wear it. I'm not going to get it down right now, but I will definitely show it. I also have a replica movie prop replica Jason mask that is really cool as shit. Um, because it's all weathered and it's all ceramic. It's awesome, but it's in a shadow box and everything put up as well. I'm still leaning towards a countercade the size of the new My Arcade Atari Mega coming out this fall. Be awesome if you could twist the screen. Yep. I think if they get into the mini arcade market, it would be more of a competitor for my 100%. I mean, obviously you got with the mini arcades, you've got MVSX releases one every year, multiple a year if you're looking at the Japan market. You have that Taito thing. There's a few other companies that make those micro ones. They're fine. It's not like they're going to do a 1/6 scale thing. It so much of what Evercade does isn't just arcades. I think arcades probably one of the smaller verticals on their game lineups, right? They're doing a lot of retro, a lot of um, computers like Commodore 64, stuff. I think they have an Amiga cart. They they're doubling down on indie. I know they have a lot of big releases. I know, um, um, dear Lord, uh, what is I'm drawing a blank on his YouTube name. John Hancock, right? The immortal John Hancock. He has his is coming out. Rock'em Sock'em is coming out on Evercade or already is. I know it's in the store already. I think, um, and selling decently. Last I heard. But, the physical is coming or already up for pre-order. Oh, Dream Wars, greatest Nightmare on Elm Street and Dawkins, right? Great song. Uh, does P. Diddy have his own pinball table? That would be a scary one, and maybe it's, Diddy and Epstein together. Uh, Hip hop tables would be cool. How about a Run DMC table with Walk This Way and everything? That would be Think of all the things you could do because you got, the turntable might wobble, but it don't fall down, and it's tricky, and there are so many great things they could do with Run DMC to make a table, would be kick ass. Uh, Chucky doll. They, right now, NECA has some life-size Chucky dolls you can purchase, but they are, 400, 450, I think, of the Chucky and his bride. Yeah, Evercade's very retro. So, I mean, they do have arcades, right? They have the Data East, they have the IRAM stuff. They have a lot of arcade games there, but they also have far more of the other stuff. I think an arcade would be cool. Um, but like I said, I'm hoping they get a more powerful system that would allow for more powerful indie titles. Like I said, 4K would be cool on that front with modern retro stuff. A lot of good modern retro. And then Brooklyn, I think doesn't he has everything. He has all the Evercade stuff. Uh, MC Hammer, yeah. A pinball table for can't touch this. It just drains all the time. Oh man. Yeah. I don't think we'd ever get like a two live crew table. Uh Evercade has most of the games iArcade had. Yeah. And a lot of good shmups. Yeah. That's certainly good. Maybe it's why they doubled down on tape mode, right? They could, from an arcade standpoint, having a good joystick and something that's a decent size for those shmups in the tape mode would actually be kind of cool. Pinball table with just one song. Of course, we need insane clown posse pinball. Yeah, or Fat Boys, speaking of Nightmare on Elm Street, right? Fat Boys had an official Nightmare on Elm Street song, plus you got Wipeout and, the collab with the Beach Boys. We need a Fat Boys table. Alrighty. Well, that's all I got. And so I again, thanks everybody for stopping by and rambling with my or listening to my rambles. Hopefully, um, the the information I've shared on the Analog Pocket is of interest to you, and you can find ways to use that in your own home arcade to get your home arcade fix until one of these companies or a new company comes along and decides to uh, feed this market what the products it wants. Just a quick shout out on the Golden Tee. That thing is already sold out everywhere, which just floors me. So either Arcade One Up didn't ship very many of those, um, or they really did sell really well, which surprises me because the XL version's been out in stores for 2 years. That they would release a smaller version of the same thing and be sold out already is just boggles the mind. But anyway, um, yeah, I love the Pocket. The Jason, the interesting thing I found on the Pocket is some of these games, Splatterhouse specifically. I had Splatterhouse growing up. I had a TurboGrafx 16. I have the Analog Duo. The first game I played on the Duo was Splatterhouse. And it was much like it was when I played on the TurboGrafx 16. I was just not very good at it. When I play the same thing on the Analog Pocket, I've I play better than I ever have. For some reason, the smaller screen, I don't know what it is, but I play the games. I'm noticing I play games way better on the smaller screen and on that handheld than I do regularly, which just kind of floors me because, I don't know what it is. Is it because it's the whole thing's like right there? It's not like a 4 by 3 screen is so big that you lose peripheral vision. I don't know what it is, but I definitely am playing a lot of these games better on that handheld than I do on the consoles for some reason. I don't get it. I have no explanation for it. Um, but I do like playing them that way. Like the other one was that stupid Keith Courage. I was terrible at that. Like, I can actually get, like, all the way to the end. I keep dying on the final guy on the final level, because it's so hard to get to him. You get there and you have no energy left, but I can actually get there. Like, as a kid playing that game and even playing it on the Duo, like, I'm lucky if I can get past, like, the 3rd level. But I can rock it out on the Pocket for some reason. Um, Maybe it's easier to just judge jumps or I don't know, but you don't jump in Splatterhouse. I don't get it. But, all right, now I'm gonna quit going on. And again, thanks everybody stopping by. And until next time, have fun and have a great Memorial Day. Forgot to do the shout out for there. This is going to be obviously it's an important time to remember all those who served and gave all. Uh, Appreciate their service. Appreciate anybody that served. 19K Fox, everybody. Have a good Memorial Day. Uh, like I said, remember all those who gave all. Try to spend time with family and and have a good one. And again, until next time, have fun.